Hey crafters, Big D here, and this week we're finally doing another crafting video. It's been a while, I apologize, but we're back. And this week's going to be pretty cool because I'm going to show you how I do my homemade desert bases, and I'm going to show you how to make my homemade texture paste and you can see the size of this container. This costed less than getting a thing of agarose dunes. So that's a lot of texture paste for not a lot of dollars. So let's hit the table. All right, crafters. So we're gonna make some paste and we're gonna texture up some bases. So the first thing I just want to note, if you're getting bases that have texture on them, like the standard GW base that has that slight kind of grainy texture to it, you're fine. There's really no prep to be done for those. I buy my bases in bulk just because I never know when I'm going to need more bases, or I use them to make objectives and all kinds of different things. So I just buy big bags of bases. But the cheap source, I get them from the plastic's very shiny. So to make any type of texture paste or whatnot work with this, you're going to want to sand it so it's not so shiny. You know, want to just give it a little bit of a matte, grainy, you know, I took like 60 grit wood sandpaper and just gave it a couple rubs just to kind of make it gritty and grainy and not so slick. And that's just to make it nice and adhesive. Now you'll need some sort of tools or texture paste things to put your stuff on your base. And you're going to need a container to put the base, the material in that you're going to use to make this texture paste. Now this texture paste is awesome. It's very durable. If you let it sit for a while, because you make a lot at a time, you'll need to mix it up in between, you know, before using it again, because you want it to have, you know, again, a paste-like texture when you're ready to apply it. Now, the secret to this is how cheap and silly the ingredients are to make it. So what this cheap paste is, it is a $3 container of pre-mixed lightweight vinyl wall filler, or people here in the States, I don't know what a spackle, but you need the lightweight vinyl, not the heavy duty stuff, not the heavy duty wall filler, not nail filler. You want lightweight pre-mixed vinyl filler. I get a container that's about half this size, and it's like $3 at the hardware store. So I take that, I put that in here, and then I'll put 2 tablespoons of PVA glue. Typically I use Eileen's tacky glue, but I'll put the filler in here, put 2 teaspoons of the tacky glue in there. I'll put 2 tablespoons of distilled water just to get it down to a pasty-like consistency. And then you add your aggregate. If you want to have a kind of a smooth or muddy texture, don't put anything in there. If you want to have a very rocky texture, put in straight up construction sand. I've put in a tablespoon of filtered sand from construction sand, so it's not super fine, but it's basically got most of the big aggregate pulled out of it. And I've got that, just put that in there, and then you just mix it up. You can, if you're going to be storing it for a while and you're concerned about it going bad or getting stinky, because it can happen if you're not using distilled water, put in only half the amount of water, and then put in a tablespoon of 90% isopropyl alcohol. It'll have the same effect. It'll keep it nice and paste-like. And as you can see, after a nice mixing, after it's sitting for a while, I've got a nice consistent paste here. This stuff will be great for applying the bases. So you get your texture tool, get your bases prepped, and once you've got it, it's very simple. You're just taking it, and you're not going crazy. You're not putting a ton of it on there, but you don't have to go light either. You just want to put on a texture. And since we're going for kind of a rocky, sandy desert here, you're going to cover the whole base, and then you want to use your tool to kind of smooth it out and put just some ridges in there. All right, so just like that. Like I said, it's not like you're not packing on, you know, a 1/4 inch of it or anything, but about 1 millimeter or 2 thick. And then, you know, not be afraid to let the tool put ridges and lines in there, make it look natural, and then just let that dry and let it dry overnight. Give it a full 24 hours to dry, and that will dry hard as stone. And the glue in there binds it together and binds to your base. So I'm going to do these other 5, and then I'm going to let them dry, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about painting. All right, so letting those guys dry. I had one that I made earlier, and we've just primed it. I'm just using a plain black primer, but you can see how that lovely texture comes through on these. So now we're just going to give this a real quick paint job, because these are, the nice thing about it, you're going to let the texture do the work for you. Very simple scheme. I'm only going to be using 4 paints. I'm using Vallejo Yellow Ochre, Vallejo Buff, Citadel Screaming Skull, and Army Painter's Quick Shade, the strong tone. So there are some options you can do. I'm going for like a rocky desert. The nice thing about this paste, because we didn't add any color to it, once you prime it, you can paint it anything you want. If, say, you wanted to do this as sort of a marshy desert, you could do this in reds. If you wanted to make this more of a volcanic type area, you could work in more grays and blacks. It's nice and generic that way, so that you can let your priming and your paint job completely determine what it is you've got here. So we're going to start with our base color, which is the Vallejo Yellow Ochre. Just get a little on our palette, a little bit of water. And then we're just going to give it a thorough coat All right, so you can see here, we've got a thin coat here. You can still see some primer through it. We're going to let this dry, and then we're going to put a second coat on it, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to come to a highlighting stage. So we'll let this dry, a second coat, and I'll be right back. Okay, so 2 coats of yellow ochre, and we have the beginnings of our base. The next step is taking Vallejo Buff, and we're just highlighting this. So we're just putting a little bit on our brush, and we're just kind of stroking it across, heavier than, say, a dry brush would be, obviously, but we want to make sure we don't cover up that lovely ochre color underneath. All right. That looks pretty good. All right, so we're gonna let that dry. And the next stage is gonna just be some good old strong tone. So let this dry and we'll come back. So I did just the one, and I had to refilm this section because I put the strong tone on when I did the one, and I left the camera on, and it ended up being almost an hour and a half because I walked away. I thought I turned the camera off and I didn't. So that was going to take forever to edit. So let's try this again. We've got our bases here. We've got the ochre on them. We've got them highlighted with the buff. And now we're just taking some strong tone from Army Painter Quick Shades, and we're just giving them nice dose. And making sure it goes into the crevices and the recesses. Now, you could do this with Agrax Earthshade. I mean, to be honest, you could do these colors in whichever colors you have that match the closest to these tones, obviously. I'm just giving the recipe I'm using because I found the combination that I like the best. One of the things I really like about the Army Painter Quick Shades, these on a whole, that's the entire line, I like that they're sticky. They cling, I mean, they pool better and they cling better, so you don't have this weird coffee staining like you get with some shades if you try to put on a heavy coat. Now, if I'm just trying to use a light amount of shade, I'm not really just dousing it, I'll usually use either my Green Stuff World or my GW based shades. But I have just found that the Army Painter Quick Shades, they recess really well, but I don't find that they pool or coffee stain. So I like using them for projects like this where I'm absolutely dousing the object, because it does run off and it does pool, but when it recesses, when it stretches back, it just does it differently. I don't know how the formulation is different, but it just does it differently, and it doesn't do that weird staining problem. So here we go. Heavy dose of the strong tone on there. We're gonna let those dry, and then we're gonna come back and do some dry brushing with our Screaming Skull and other details. So we will be right back. All right, crafters, nice and dry, and we are on to our last step. We're going to take a little bit of Screaming Skull and we're going to get a nice wide flat brush, a little paint on there, brush most of it off, and we're going to dry brush this using wide flat strokes. you go. Doesn't take much. And that is looking amazing. It doesn't take much to get that place. Now at this point, you're just going to want to grab some super glue, throw on a tuft or two of your choice. You want something appropriate. I've got these wonderful, these are dead grass from Army Painter. They work out really well. And then we're just going to rim the base. I'm rimming these in Hull Red. And we're going to come back and show you outside of these and what they look like as a group. And here we go, the finished bases. Now I got 4 more I still got to do a complete 15. But we've got, again, a nice 60mm base, and we'll have 15 of these 32mm bases. Now, originally, the reason I was making these bases is I was creating them for a set of Space Marines that I, in the end, decided not to finish with. So instead, it's time for my quarterly Warlord giveaway, my Warlord patron giveaway. And so I did a drawing, and these are what are going to Flight of the Phoenix. So congratulations, Flight of the Phoenix. I hope you enjoyed these bases. I hope you viewers enjoyed these bases and enjoyed how I made them, and I hope you find this tutorial easy to follow and easy to do. They make really great looking bases. I really love the way these look. I'm definitely, since I've got a ton of this paste left, I'm going to definitely make some more. I've got some definite ideas on other ways I could do it. I eventually want to do another Chaos Army with the followers of Fabius Bile. So I don't know if I'm going to do desert. Maybe I'll add some more aggregate and do kind of a rocky moon-like base. Again, you could do this. You change the colors. You change the whole concept of the base. You could do these in reds, and you suddenly got like a Martian-like soil. You do it in grays, and you could be doing like either volcanic or a moon-like. You could do them in bizarre colors and have it some warp-affected world. There's a couple different tuft options you could do. You could even get some of this bracken and do these in weird alien jungle colors. That's the nice thing about this paste. It's really, really variable depending on what you're trying to do. So change up the aggregate, you get different stuff. And because it's a plaster-like material, if you put it down fresh and then stick something into it, it will, because of the glue and the plaster-like, it'll stick and should stay. So you can put some logs down, put some twigs down and make it look more like a woodland material. You got a lot of options. So I hope you found this informative. I hope you found it instructive. And Flight of the Phoenix, I hope you enjoy your new bases. Follow us on Instagram. I am Gamecraft Dragon on Instagram. Lady Dragon 28 also on Instagram. We have our talks every Tuesday, and I try to put these tutorials out as often as I can. So thank you so much. And remember, guys, when you're trying to epic these out, you're doing this to make your figures epic, and that's part of epicing your game. So epic your game, epic your board, and epic your life. Game on.